Hi, I'm Nigel Marsh, and this is the 5 of My Life podcast, the show where 5 choices reveal sideways insights into the lives, opinions, and lessons of interesting people. Katy, welcome to 5 of My Life.
Thanks for having me, Nigel. I'm so excited to be here.
Well, tell me first of all, how did you find the process?
Oh, and I loved it. Oh my gosh, it was such an incredible process. And I was talking to my sister about it a lot. And in fact, like every dinner party or coffee with friends we've had, we're like, we've got 5 questions to ask you. And so I think we've asked all of Kyneton. We've really enjoyed it. We've loved it. It was hard, but we've loved it.
And have your choices changed throughout the weeks?
Yes. Ups and downs. And then there's my favourite of this time. It's my favourite. Do I want a song that's upbeat, or do I want a song that I listen to when I'm sad or when I'm happy? And I've got 100 books I want to read. And so definitely have changed. And people's opinions sometimes change. In fact, I had to stop listening to your other podcasts because I didn't want to keep hearing other people's ideas.
So have you listened to a few episodes?
Yeah, I listened to lots and then I had to stop about a week ago.
Now, before we get into your choices, I have to ask you a question about your email signature, because I love it. When you first wrote to me, it had your name at the end, and then it said, "Small things done with great love will change the world, Mother Teresa." And then the next one, underneath it had, "Why walk when you can dance?" How does that work? Is that an algorithm, or do you choose them yourself?
I just choose them myself when I think about it and I've got a moment. I'll put a new saying on. So they're 2 of my favourites, actually. So sometimes they stay on for 6 months and sometimes they change every week. Just depends what's going on. But I do love a good saying.
Oh, no, I'm an aphorism fan. I really enjoy it. So, well, I'm looking forward to your next email. If it's a bit like getting on a plane and go, I hope they've changed the films. So next email, I hope you've changed your quote.
All right, I'll think of a special one just for you.
Now, we start with the film. On 5 of My Life, and you have chosen the 1965 Oscar-winning classic, The Sound of Music. Tell us why.
Oh my gosh, The Sound of Music. How can you go wrong? So that saying, the quote that you just said, why walk when you can dance, is something I used to say as a teenager a lot, meaning you can have more fun in life as you go around. And for movies, for me, it's like, why watch a movie when you can watch a musical? I was just raised on musicals. We were, my parents, we weren't allowed to watch TV during the week, but on the weekends we sort of binged on classic old musicals and other movies. And this is my favourite by far. It takes me, Sound of Music takes me right back to sitting every Saturday morning, sitting in front of the fire with the Sound of Music on, usually doing some colouring in. I'm the youngest of 4 girls, so I was usually the first up and would put that on, I think, trying to claim the TV before the big girls got there. So I would sit in front of the TV singing along to The Sound of Music. I barely even had to watch it. I knew all the words. And just this feeling of love. And, Sound of Music is also about a family that overcome things to be together and be unified. And for me, that's what my family is. And so it just takes me straight back to that fireplace. And, my sisters would eventually come and join me and sing along, even when they were teenagers, and they would grunt and say they were too cool for Sound of Music now. We'd all end up singing along. And my parents as well. So it just brings back beautiful memories. And I, this year on my birthday, I made my children watch it and it still held up and they enjoyed it and I enjoyed it. So it's just a classic. I love it.
And I have to ask, so there's 7 kids in The Sound of Music. You've got 3 sisters. Yes. Do you get on? Is it as lovely as in the film, or do you fight like cats and dogs?
Well, at that age, both, definitely. We fought like cats and dogs, especially my 2 middle sisters, but get along. I'm very, very lucky. My sisters are my 3 best friends. I was lucky to grow up surrounded by all the love that they gave me. So when my parents grew up in Bendigo in country Victoria, but as soon as they were married, they went up to Western Australia and worked in Indigenous communities up there. I wasn't born up there. 2 of my sisters were born there, and then they moved to Sydney and we were in the army. I wasn't, obviously, but my parents were both in the army, and we moved around a lot in that time in true army sense. But we were away from our extended family then, so I think that made us bond quite a lot as family because we only had each other. And my mum and dad set up a amazing sort of, environment where we always looked after each other first, and family always came first is what they taught us. So I'm very lucky. And then we moved to Kyneton, and like all teenagers, we all said when we were 18, we all left Kyneton thinking we would never come back because who wants to live in country Victoria will go live in the big city and overseas. And then we all came back. So all four of us were living close by mum and dad. And so we've been able to raise our families together, which has been, a true blessing. I actually live in a house with one of my sisters and her kids. And because my husband does FIFO, he flies in and out of the country for work. And so we're able to live together and support each other with childcare and babysitting and house life. So we're not the only adult in the house, which is a true blessing. So I'm very
sounds
lucky.
Lovely. But I think we might be coming on to that with your fourth choice. So I'm going to move you off Kyneton and move you to, you've chosen as your film one of the most successful films of all time, and you've chosen as your book one of the most successful books of all time. We're moving from the 60s to the 80s, and you've chosen Bryce Courtenay's breakout book, The Power of One. Tell us about that, Katy.
I mean, wow, what a book is The Power of One. I mean, it's an epic journey. I don't know how you found reading it, but it's an epic journey that you go along with little PK. And I've loved this book for a long time. It was given to me by one of my sisters. In fact, when I got it out when I was thinking about the podcast, I opened up the page and it says, from my sister Janice, you're finally getting your own copy. Read it over and over again.
Oh.
And that's what I've done. And there's so much to love about this book. I think, PK is born in this world full of prejudice and racism, and he's just an honest little boy who is open to friendship wherever he finds it. His best friend is a chicken and a train conductor and a German professor. And I just think that's beautiful. Like learning that friendship is what can get you through and what gives you strength and power. And I found that in my own life. My friends are everything to me, and they've definitely, given me the strength and power to move through life, keep me grounded and keep me inspired. So I love that in The Power of One, and I love how it talks about adversity and all the different forms of prejudice and racism that are there and how he overcomes them. And he just sees everybody for who they are, not for what they look like, not for their religion or their taste or who their best friend is. He just sees them for people. And, I think that's something that we've always had in my life and in my family. As I said, my parents worked in Indigenous communities when they were first married. So I think we've always had an understanding and an openness to First Nations culture and a real appreciation and wanting to include that in our lives. So I love all of that. And then I guess the last theme that I love about the book is PK's passion. He has a passion to become a boxer. And I can't think of anything I'd like to do less probably than be a boxer. And I feel like I learn a lot about boxing when I read the book. But I sort of understand it in a way because for me that's always been nursing and midwifery. From the earliest moment I knew that I wanted to be a nurse, and I was quite passionate about becoming a nurse. So although boxing and nursing probably there's not a lot of similarities, but the passion, you have to have the passion and the strive and the want to be there.
So I envy anyone that at an early age knows what they want to do. And it makes me want to ask you, is why do you think you were touched on the shoulder? What was it that appealed to you?
I don't even know. I think there was always a passion inside me to care for other people. And I think from a young age I could see that nurses was an easy way or an obvious way to get that. And the more I looked into it, the more I thought, yes, this is for me. So I think definitely that caring side, but also nursing is a very holistic profession. Excuse me, you look after the whole person. I remember once when I was an early graduate, I was helping one of my clients change her sheets after she'd had a baby. And she said, I don't think you should be changing the sheets. You went to uni for 4 years to get this degree. You just helped me birth the baby. But for me, that's not what it's about. Like, when I'm changing her sheets, I'm providing her quality and comfort. I'm talking to her about her baby, all the incidental conversations that happen in those moments. I think nursing is a true gift in that you go from doing the hardest tasks that no one else can do to easy tasks that 100 other people could do. But if you do them all with love and passion, that's where you find the true heart of it. And nursing is a hard profession, and it's been very tough in the last few years with COVID and challenges since COVID. But I'm lucky that I still love it, and I still appreciate that it can do a lot of good in the world.
That is such a wonderful sentiment, Katy. Gosh, I mean, to be of service. My youngest daughter is a nurse, and to have, I just love that. I mean, what a noble profession if it is viewed in the way that you have just so articulately described. It's not about the actual thing that you might be doing. It's about the outcome, which is, caring for people. And that might be doing something really intricate with a needle or whatever, or it might be, moving a bedpan. I mean, who knows? But it's about the, the core outcome, caring for another human. Gosh.
That's right.
Yeah, I think there's a shorter version of that should be at the base of your next email.
I'll try and find a good Florence Nightingale or something post for you.
Have you listened to the Mary Chiarella episode?
Yes, that was great.
Five My Life.
Yeah.
Oh, she was great, wasn't she? Just fantastic.
Yeah,
we're moving to your song, and this gets added to the Five My Life Spotify playlist, wonderful playlist. And I mean, forgive me, Katy, I'd never heard of this song. It's sensational. It's so upbeat and joyous. So it's 2008, Say Hey, I Love You, Michael Franti and Spearhead.
My mama told me don't lose you, 'cause the best luck I had was you. I said, hey, I'll be gone today, but I'll be back from around the way. It seems like everywhere I go, the more I see, the less I know. But I know one thing, that I love you.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, like you say, what an incredible song. And yeah, he's not really well known in Australia. I think he's quite big, has been in times in America, but he's great. Like, start listening to some of his other music. It's very uplifting and inspirational. He's, a poet through music. And for me, this song takes me right back. I think all good songs take you on a journey, or take you to a place in your life, either in the future or in the past. And this song, it takes me right back to where I first heard it, where I hadn't heard it before either. And that was at a personal empowerment program I did. Where they would play this song, to tell us to come back for dinner or to come back for the next course or next chat that we were having. They would play this song. It became our theme song, basically.
Now explain to people who don't understand, including me, what a personal empowerment course is.
So this one is quite unique in that it was run through an NGO that's based in Adelaide called World Youth International. And basically, so with World Youth International, they assist volunteers to go abroad to work, either professionally or in a non-professional sense. And they have a community I went to Kenya, and they also go to Nepal and now Uganda. And they've got some setups there where you can go and do some volunteering. And yeah, they're an amazing organisation. They literally changed my life. Going to Kenya, and it may be connected to the power of one. Like, my love of Africa has been from forever. And the moment I stepped on the ground in Kenya, I knew that this was my place. It was honestly, it almost was my choice for my favourite place, but it's a beautiful place. So basically, long story short, I went to Kenya. And I helps with building houses and doing some community development and a little bit of nursing. And then when you come back, the World Youth International offered you a program where you could come together with other volunteers from the year and debrief about the program, and get some, understanding, because there's a lot of changes that happen to you when you step into those third world countries, and do that sort of work. So a little bit of debriefing and support to come back, but also work for yourself and on empowerment. And World Youth probably don't advertise it as we're here actually to support the local volunteers, but they actually put as much work into the Australian volunteers as they do into their work overseas, because they're all about, developing us as well into the people that we want to be. So they taught me confidence. They taught me leadership. They helped me to be empowered. They helped me connect to my values. They are an incredible organisation. I couldn't talk highly enough about them. And the combination of both Kenya and this PEP program, it definitely put my life on a different track, and definitely helped me find the person I wanted to be.
What an amazing story. How old were you when you set foot in Kenya?
That's a good question. My first volunteering stint was actually Papua New Guinea, which I'll get to later. But so Kenya would have been about 2006. I was in my 20s. Yeah, in my 20s. So I'd been working as a nurse and a midwife already for a few years. And my first trip to Kenya, I actually didn't base in nursing. I sort of wanted a little step away, a little break, to see what it was like just to travel in Africa and Kenya. Did a lot of traveling, and then did the 10 weeks volunteering. And we mostly did community development work, which was incredible because we lived in the community. We had to get water from the lake, and no electricity and all those sort of things, which helps you become part of the village. So we did that for my first one, and then I did PEP, and then my second one I went and did an all nursing volunteer program where I worked in hospitals and in community, and did a lot of health education, both for professional nurses over there as well as community development work. And then the last time I went in 2013, we actually worked with them and another gorgeous nurse, and we created a nursing-specific program where you go as a group with nurses. So we designed the program so that you didn't have to be as a professional nurse by yourself, and we could go in as a team of nurses and make some positive change in the communities that wanted us to come. And it's been incredible. Like, we don't want to take we don't take jobs from the locals, because all the local nurses and healthcare workers are incredible. So we definitely don't take jobs from them, but we support them, and we provide education that they don't get there, and we set up community initiatives, and it's incredible. I could talk on and on about it. And they're a great organisation. They're completely not-for-profit. Their family, it started as a family-run organisation, and now one of the family members is still heavily involved, and they passed on to the others. I'm still involved on their board now that I can't get to Kenya all the time with 3 small children. I help out on the board, and I think they're just amazing. So,
well, what a wonderful rev up for that organisation. I'm going to check them out further after this conversation. How fantastic! A couple of quotes from the lyrics of your song. The first is, "The more I see, the less I know," and the second one is, "I've been to a lot of places all around the way. I've seen a lot of joy and I've seen a lot of pain." How has your sort of worldview been informed by the fact that you've done a lot of travel, be it Kenya, be it Papua New Guinea, be it with your parents being in the military? How has that changed your worldview, do you think?
Oh, hugely. I think there's an understanding that, I think you can get stuck, especially as a new parent, in going to school runs and in and out of school, or living in your small community. You can get a bit stuck that this is all there is in life, and forget how privileged we are, forget how much we have going for us. And I think travel, it helps you see the world, but it also helps you find yourself. And I've felt that every way. And those exact lyrics that you pulled out are definitely the ones that I related to the most as well, because I feel like, everywhere you go, you feel like you learn so much, but then you just realize how much you don't know and how much more you could learn about through culture and through living with other people. So I just wish, you know, that we could all travel more and learn from each other's cultures. I think it's such an incredible thing. But, you know, and Kenya, for example, is a place of a lot of joy. Like when you arrive in the village that we work in most of the time, a gorgeous place called Odede, they come out and greet you and they sing and dance and clap their drums, and you get to do this African dancing as you walk into the village. It's one of the best experiences of your life. But then, you know, you go to the hospital that we work at and, you know, sad things happen there that we don't accept here. You know, more babies die. People are living with cancer and not getting treatment. There's a whole, you know, generation gap from when the HIV and AIDS was a big problem. And there's a lot of children that don't have their parents because of that. So I've definitely seen a lot of pain in those countries, and, you know, learning our limitations on how much we can do to help people in those places is huge, and something that you're still getting your head around years and years later. The difference between our lives and their lives in good ways and bad ways, I think.
There's a quote that helps me when I see, you know, awful things that you wish that you could change, but you know you really can't, is the biggest mistake that humanity makes is just because you can't do everything, thinking that you should do nothing.
Yes, that's such a good one.
I love the notion where you go, do you know what, your fabulous work in Kenya, it's not going to solve all Africa's problems. There will still be awful things that happen. But hey, does that mean that you don't do the wonderful stuff that you do? You go, you know, put your shoulder to the wheel and do what you can, you know, contribute where you can, and then be happy with it. I think some people, you know, I understand they beat themselves up, they get miserable because they can't solve all the world's problems. Well, no one can, you know.
That's right. I couldn't agree with you more. And I think, you know, coming home from overseas and things, like you get stuck thinking, well, I'm here now and I can't do anything. And you know, that's like the Mother Teresa quote you said to me, like, if you want to change the world, go home and love your family. That's, you know, I find that, like, go home and you can do small things with your own life, in your own family, or working to support people from abroad from home. There's so much you can do. And just finding the right path that brings you joy as well makes a huge difference.
So talking of home, we're coming to your place and you've chosen Kyneton. Excuse me if I pronounce that wrong.
No,
is it
that's right.
Kyneton. That's
Kyneton,
in between Melbourne and Castlemaine, is that right? In Victoria?
Yes. Yeah.
Could you describe it for us and tell us why you've chosen it?
Yeah, so Kyneton is the town that my parents moved to after being in the army and everything. We moved here when I was about 8 or 9. And it's a beautiful town. Yes, it's just over an hour from Melbourne and an hour from, most people would say, Bendigo. It's the next big town. So in central Victoria, it's a gorgeous little place, about 5,000 to 6,000 people. Beautiful town in the middle with lots of farming surrounding. And it's just it's a community. It's this beautiful community where you meet people at the supermarket every time. Coming back here as a parent, you know, I can go to the park or the library and I can run into someone and have a chat with them down the street. It's beautiful. In autumn, people come from Melbourne to see the autumn leaves. And right now, as spring is hitting, we're just going into the Daffodil Festival. So a lot of small towns in country Victoria have a spring festival or a flower festival, and ours is the daffodil. So everywhere you go in Kyneton, there's daffodils popping out of every fence. And it's this beautiful tradition where we have open gardens. They have a scarecrow competition where people put scarecrows on their fences. All the shop windows are covered in flowers. And this year is very special because my son's been chosen to be the Daffodil Prince. There's daffodil royalty. So we're feeling very excited this year for that. And it's just one of those towns that gives you a warm, fuzzy feeling. And I'm really happy here. My parents are still here. And like I said earlier, my sisters and I all moved away as teenagers, and then we all moved back.
And all four of the siblings are in Kyneton?
Yes.
That's
Well, one of my sisters, sadly, she just left and she just went to Melbourne for a little while, but we'll wait and see what happens.
You'll get her back.
But yes, all four of us were here for a good 5 years with, the 12 nieces and nephews. So I got to raise my children amongst my nieces and nephews. And my sister had children well before I did. So I got to be the fun auntie who didn't have children for a long time. And my family, we have dinner every Wednesday night as a whole crew, big loud crew, every Wednesday around mum and dad's dinner table. So it's beautiful. Yeah, I'm very lucky.
Oh my word! That's such a loving image, and something that my parents were military as well, and I sent off to boarding school because they were moving countries and all those things, and I've always sort of hankered after having the thing that you have described. So we came to Australia 24 years ago and literally knew nobody. So we brought up 4 kids without any support network or whatever. I mean, we've got nice friends now and that's fine. But I just adore the notion of having mum and dad up the hill and every week having a huge family gathering. What a sort of a blanket of love for your kids to grow up in.
Yeah, that's right. They're surrounded. And with my husband doing the fly in, fly out work, my family steps in and are their second parents. So I'm very lucky we couldn't live this life without them. We live with one of my sister and her kids. And so their cousins are actually like their siblings, and that's beautiful. And then, mum and dad are down the road, and the other 2 sisters or with their kids are not too far away. And, we do school drop-offs together. And, I'm very blessed. And I think, it's interesting that mum and dad have created that after they didn't have it for themselves.
Yes.
So, I'm really happy. And like their family were always and sadly we just lost my last grandparent. My grandma died just at the start of this year. But their parents were just down the road in Bendigo. So once we moved back, we did get to have our grandparents and aunties and uncles around. So that was good too.
And it's increasingly more important and special, I think, with social media and the internet, where people think, which I understand, that they're connected to people because they share an interest, but they might live in, Brazil or New York and you live in Melbourne, because you can be connected on the internet. And you go, yeah, but the real connection, I've always thought, is places and people that you can walk to from your front door.
That's
and
true.
I think we forget that at our peril. So if it doesn't mean, Pollyanna-ish, you've got to have tea with your neighbour every day. But if you don't know your neighbour's name, if you don't, there are some people who I know, and they're in professional circles, where they sort of drive into their home at the end of the day, straight into a garage, and it wouldn't matter where they lived. They don't know the people up and down the street. And so, I mean, horses for courses, I suppose. But I just love the picture that you've painted of your gorgeous town.
Yeah, and I'm very lucky that we ended up here and that we were able to move back and that my family all moved back. I mean, it's a blessing. But I think we don't know how much we need connection and how good that is for our mental and physical health, really. So I'm very lucky to have it. So, very blessed indeed.
Now, talking of connection, how did you meet your husband? Tell us the story.
So I met my husband on my second volunteer stint in Papua New Guinea, actually. So when I was working as a midwife, my housemate at the time was a nurse at the Children's Hospital, and her dad had set up an organisation to go to Papua New Guinea into the highlands, so up in the mountains in Papua New Guinea. And I probably shouldn't say, because I think I broke the cardinal rule of you don't date anybody while you're volunteering, because it's not the done thing. So my husband was working as a resident doctor in labour ward, and I was working as a midwife, working alongside the midwives. They were teaching me a lot of things, and I was teaching them a little bit. So that's how we met. So people used to love to joke that we met over we met over a lot of women labouring. Let me just say that.
I love the fact. So if I could coin a phrase, in a flagrant breach of HR protocol, which is exactly how I met my wife.
Oh, okay. So I understand then.
well, lots of the best relationships do. I think so.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, and like, you know, you need something that joins you, don't you? So we both had a passion for caring for people and looking after them and women's health and children's health. So we've got all that still bonds us together today. So, so that's how I met him on my second trip there. So I said I did fall in love with the country before I fell in love with you. So that's lucky. And very good. And we lived there when we were first together. We lived there for 3 years. And I worked in helping set up a domestic violence child abuse centre while he worked as an obstetrician. So, you know, I was able to fall in love with the country and everything that it gives us and his family. And Papua New Guinea is a gorgeous place. They're all about family there and about their tribe and their community. And they taught me a lot about valuing that. So I definitely think that's part of the reason I live in this communal setting when I came back to Australia, because I saw them doing that in Papua New Guinea as a way of life. You know, in Papua New Guinea, they don't have orphanages. Even if a child loses their parents, someone else just takes them on. They've never had an orphanage in Papua New Guinea. There's no such thing as no one having a family. Everyone's got a family, and that's central to life there.
Well, so Papua New Guinea is the perfect link to your fifth and last choice, which is Papua New Guinea. And again, forgive my pronunciation if I get this wrong, Bilum. Is that right?
Bilum.
Bilum.
Yes, Bilum.
And it's the first one that your husband gave you. Could you describe it, first of all, and then tell us why you've chosen it?
Yeah, so Bilums have become the national symbol in Papua New Guinea, and they are literally, Bilum is the word, just means bag, just translates into bag. And so across Papua New Guinea, women make Bilums for their family or for their community, and depending what part of Papua New Guinea you're from, what they look like. So you can have, so the Bilum that my husband gave me, which is the one I've chosen today, is actually from his family, which are coastal, so very hot on the coast. So it's made of like a fine, like very fine ropes, and it's sort of like crocheted together into a netting bag. Now, his family that are now actually from the mountains, like near where we lived, and they call it cold there, but it's actually beautiful mid-20s temperature every day. It's amazing. But because it's cold there, inverted commas, they use a wool, like a thicker wool, to make their Bilums. And so they're warmer, they're thicker, and it's hard to describe, but they're full of different colours. Depending where you're from, they have different images on them, different ways that they design them. But sort of just imagine a crocheted or knitted bag and you'll get an idea. And they use them for everything. So you use them, like I use them as my handbags here, but they have like ones for going to the market that are bigger and waterproof. And then they even have baby Bilums. So you might see a picture of women over in Papua New Guinea where they carry the baby and they put the strap of the bag or the Bilum across their head, the baby and the bag goes down, and the baby's sort of sitting in the bottom of the bag in the crook of their back. And that's how they carry their babies. And in fact, their babies sleep in them too, like a sort of like a hammock.
It sounds wonderful.
Yeah. So they use them for everything. And I'd like to say that I learnt how to make them when I was there, but I sat in the circle of women who were making them when I lived in Mendi and said, okay, show me how to make a Bilum. I'm here for a few years. I've got time. And I got to the part where you have to combine the wool on your leg through this special rubbing motion, and that's as far as I got. And they thought that was very funny that the white woman couldn't do it. So that's good.
Well, and what a wonderful memory of your time over there.
Yes, I know. It'd be nice if I could make one, but maybe one day.
Now, there's actually 6 choices on Five My Life, and we're coming to the person who you would like to hear on the show next and why.
This is so hard. Oh, gosh. So I've thought about this one a lot, and, you know, initially I thought about having my dad, because I didn't talk about my dad much, but he tells amazing stories. He's an author and a fisherman, and he, taught me how to volunteer in the community, and I love him dearly. And then my mum, she's the rock of our family. She's the one who holds us together. So initially I went to them. I always want to hear more of their stories. And then I thought, no, I should choose a nurse. And my sister's an incredible nurse, and I know all of my friends are incredible nurses. And then I thought, but you know what? I'm a bit selfish, and I can ask them over dinner on Wednesday night. So I'm going to ask, I've already talked about all them. So I think what I'm going to choose is Terry Hoey, who is actually the manager of World Youth International at the moment, the organisation I went to Kenya with. And the reason why is he's incredible. He's kept this organisation going, all through COVID, where we lost a lot of these organisations, as well as many years back in the past. And it was actually created as a response to his own brother's passing. And his family wanted to do something in his brother's name, and so they created this organisation. I don't even know if they knew it was going to go this far, but it has, and he's travelled to all these places. He's got incredible stories. And he comes from a different point. I come from a healthcare realm, and he comes from a different area. So I think, I think he's the one, Terry Hoey from World Youth International.
What a great suggestion. Katy, I really have enjoyed this conversation and appreciate you leaning into the format and putting so much thought into it. Thank you.
Yeah, I've loved it. It's been such an incredible experience going through all this and thinking about what I wanted to talk about and what I could mention. And I'm really excited. I'm really grateful that I had the opportunity to do this. So thank you for asking me. I'm not actually sure how I got asked, but thank you for asking me and finding me and letting me share my little story of Kyneton and nursing and Spice intergenerational playgroup and books and songs. It's been really beautiful.
Well, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I look forward to your next email and a fresh quote.
Oh, thank you. I'll think of one now.
Thank you for listening to the show, and thank you for all your messages with guest suggestions and feedback on the episodes. The Five of My Life audience really is a lovely, engaged community. Please do keep the messages coming in. The best way is through my website. And if you have a friend who you feel might enjoy a particular guest, please do forward the episode on. I do the show on my own, so without a marketing budget, word of mouth really is the only way of people discovering the show.
Podcast edit by Abe's Audio.